Nam Hu-yoon is a novelist who writes a light novel, where the villain of the story is destined to die. One day, after finishing the last chapter of his novel, he receives some sort of letter that transmigrates him into his own story, into the body of the very villain whose tragic fate he wrote. After the transmigration, Nam Hu-hyun finds himself lying on a bed. He's totally clueless about his surroundings, and even his body doesn't feel the same. When he walks up to a mirror and looks into it, he notices some disturbingly familiar features, like this ominously crimson hair, that sly mouth, and thin slitted eyes that hide every trace of emotion. That's when it hits him like a thunderbolt out of the blue. He has possessed someone else's body, and that someone is Arsène Adel, the most powerful villain in his novel. The concerning part is that he is only a few days away from being assassinated. Before we get into all that, here's the context on this villain. Basically, the Arsène family has mixed blood, part demon, part human. Thanks to the demonic powers in their bloodline, they were once one of the greatest families in the empire. But they fell from grace, thanks to 6 specific families who banded together to take them down. With that context, it's pretty clear why Adele chose to walk the path of a villain. He tried to take revenge against the families that ruined his own, but he failed miserably. That's the very reason the original Adele called out to the creator of the novel in the first place. In just a few days, Adele will die a dog's death at the hands of knights from those 6 families. And here's the kicker. In terms of talent, Adele is one of the most gifted characters in the entire novel, so much so that his abilities even outshine the main characters. But no matter how powerful the villain is, Hu-hyun wrote the story in a way that he could never defeat the main character. No matter what. Worse yet, Adele currently can't even use his mana. If only Hu-hyun had known the restrictions he put on Adele would come back to haunt him, he never would have crafted a narrative this screwed up. It's completely stacked against the villain. As he's cursing his rotten luck, he notices the same kind of letter that originally brought him into this world. Turns out, it's a letter left behind by the original Adele for Hu-hyun. Bro's hoping it'll have some helpful clues to get him started, but the paper's completely blank. Like literally, not a single word. Then, all of a sudden, letters begin appearing on the page miraculously. The phrase that pops up is a message from the original Adele to his creator. If Hu-hyun wants to know how to use the powers this body holds, Adele wants him to answer with a simple yes or no. Of course, Hu-hyun starts cursing again when he realizes he's actually talking directly to Adele, the same guy who dragged him into this mess. The paper once again insists him to respond with a yes or no. Eventually, Bro gives in and says yes. Now that Hu-hyun's on board, Adele explains that he'll answer anything his creator writes on this paper. Some questions might be free, but others come with a price. The more important the question, the higher the cost. Naturally, Hu-hyun shoots his shot and asks the big one, how to return to his original world. Adele responds immediately that it's impossible. Well, Hu-hyun kind of figured that out already, so he was ready for the bad news. Next, he asks the more practical question, how to use mana and how to activate Adele's unique abilities. Turns out this question has no fee. Adele directly imprints the knowledge into Hu-hyun's mind. The moment it happens, Hu-hyun begins to feel the mana flowing through his body. The first trait of Adele's body is the ability to take away someone's 5 senses, called darkness. The next is the power to restrain opponents using aura, called killing intent. When Hu-hyun activates it, he can feel it working. It makes him a little happier. At least now he can restrain ordinary people, if not trained knights or soldiers. The last major talent he has to learn is Adele's most busted ability, is Position Transfer 1. As the name suggests, Position Transfer 1 lets him literally switch places with an object of his choosing. It's basically the ultimate assassination move. The moment he activates it, some magic mumbo-jumbo kicks in, which is a clear sign that the power actually works. But it's not that great just yet. He can only swap within a 20 square yard radius, which is kind of underwhelming compared to Adele's powers in the original story. Still, if he keeps practicing every day, he'll improve. So, he decides to test it out by swapping places with a suit of armor nearby. The moment he activates it, he vanishes from his spot, and the suit of armor appears there. The swap is successful, but Bro doesn't exactly land smoothly. Guess he just needs more practice. Meanwhile, a group of knights is marching straight toward his residence, ready to claim his life. At the Arsène family estate, those knights finally arrive at their destination. Representing Leon County with his determined eyes, Captain Feltz learns from Adele's servants that the villain is resting in his room. The servants are worried that Adele hasn't even moved for days and he's locked inside. Barging without warning, Feltz and his men confront their target, who is casually enjoying himself as he comments on the captain's brutal mission to eliminate a young man. Without listening to Adele's words, Feltz merely orders his men to eliminate the kid immediately. But they weren't ready for our boy's position transfer ability, allowing him to switch positions with any object in a set radius. Targeting the knight's blade that was about to attack him, he initiates the ability, and lunges forth with the knight's sword in hand. His unexpected assault is a successful hit, slashing his opponent and surprising Feltz and his men. Backing away from his first kill, the villain simply awaits for the next person to mess with him. Feltz still seems confident with his numbers and orders his men to attack the guy head-on. The battle ensues, but instead of recklessly confronting them head-on, Adele breaks a window and jumps. Also, using an excellent application of his ability, he first throws the sword into the ground. Then he activates the position transfer ability just in time to replace himself with the sword. This allows him to avoid having to deal with the fall damage and escaping safe and sound. Next up, he needs to escape to the Arson family's forest. As he's delving into the forest, Feltz orders his men to chase after their target to confirm his elimination. Let's switch perspectives to the Arson forest, where our boy is panting, and his legs are trying their best to gain as much distance as possible. The thing is, even if he did escape this territory, our boy knows that only death is promised ahead. That's why, instead of escaping the territory, he plans on using the gate in the forest to access the demonic realm. The demonic realm suffered huge losses because of its war against the humans, so he's hoping that they'll accept his help in the time of need, even though he's a human himself. Though that was his initial plan, Feltz and his knights are already here, and they're sharply spreading out to look for him. Luckily, the villain is still hiding, but he's struggling to find the exact location of the gate. Having a rough idea of where the gate might be, steps on a twig and immediately draws attention with the noise. Feltz is done playing around and exerts his immense power to destroy everything in his path. He's finally located his target, which is bad news for our boy, especially since he's only got 2 more position transfers to use. His priority is to find the gate instead of fighting. But at this point, the author inside of Adele's body is starting to feel unease. That's why he consults Adele's true spirit and asks for the location of the gate. Since this is secret knowledge, it comes with a cost of 100 gold coins or a special relic boasting A rank or more. The author is freaking pissed that he's trying to negotiate something like that in the middle of the time trial for his life. Unfortunately, Feltz's latest attack catches up to our boy, who is sent knocking into the tree. With him down, the ruthless captain prepares his sword, questioning if the atrocious villain truly thought he could live if he ran for his life. Carving an eerie smile on his face, Feltz promises that Adele will meet his end today. Despite being injured, the young man responds with confidence. He did not know much about anything, except for one thing, that he was determined to survive. Realizing that he's at the verge of his life anyway, Adele gets up to use a final measure against his opponent. Feltz finds his persistence annoying, though he respects the half-demon for boasting his pride as the patriarch of his family. In response, Adele reminds him that knights like the captain and his men shouldn't even feel any semblance of dignity when they're out here ganging up on a young child. Bro literally ends his damn life by telling Feltz to switch professions to being a nanny instead. Yeah, that's gonna take some serious ice to cool from. Completely provoked, the captain points his blade at his target, coldly declaring that he will no longer hesitate to be ruthless with his blade. He plans to ensure the sword plunges the kid's heart. Feltz lunges forth to deal the killing blow, not knowing that this exact moment is what our boy had been waiting for. He whips out the special note that he uses to communicate with Adele and forces its contact with Feltz's sword. Maybe you guys don't understand what's going on. Our boy is so smart, he used his opponent's special artifact as the cost to know the answer to his question. This achieves his goal and also takes away Feltz's weapon. Adel's got that happy, "I fooled you, bruh" smile on his face, while the captain's blade disintegrates to nothingness, much to his amazement. The position of the demonic gate is made clear as the reward for the artifact, and so our boy utilizes position transfer again to leap away. Feltz tried stopping him, but the incompetent captain just lost his chance. The villain escapes to find his special gate. Having finally located the gate that exudes red tendrils of dark energy, Adele has achieved his purpose. But this guy Feltz is like a damn cockroach. He chucks a freaking log at our boy, and the moment it is about to make contact with Adele's head, he activates the final usage of his position transfer, promising to see the captain again someday. Feltz is frustrated that his target escaped to the demonic realm, a place where only darkness awaits him. A while passes, and we get to see Adele sitting on his own and chewing down some meat. He wonders how long it's been after he successfully passed through the gate and entered the dungeon. This dungeon is actually a humanly made dungeon that someone created using the secret demonic arts. Now he is rather surprised to find jerky in a bed placed here. Adele wonders if it was intentionally being used to protect some kind of treasure. Also, there's a special barrier that deflects any blades from the front. There's also a stone guardian here, which only further adds the mysterious origins of this man-made dungeon. The stone guardian looks creepy by itself, and even Adele knows that if he crosses the barrier to challenge it, he will literally get bitch-slapped, so he won't be trying that. Finally, the special note illuminates as Adele's true spirit communicates with the author, warning him of a penalty for manipulating the rules of the price. This is because he tried forcing Feltz's sword as a sacrifice. This trick will no longer work beyond this point. But even the author thinks that it's crazy already he was able to use it at all. Also, he's not even being punished for it. Suddenly, the author's attention is drawn to a stone which appears different from the others on the wall. Interacting with the stone, he realizes that it's only thanks to Adele's powers that he's able to perceive certain things. An assertive voice responds to him interacting with the stone, telling him that he does not possess the right to use this function. Our boy strongly suspects that this stone must be the key to the deactivation of the barrier. Since he can't use that, he's planning on using another way to escape. Past the barrier, he sees a stone that likely fell from the stone guardian's body. Even though it is a stone, it might prove to be useful in this case. Activating his position transfer ability, the author switches places with the piece of stone, safely exiting without needing to activate the function. But this dude is too caught up in his excitement and forgets the demonic stone dragon that was outside. The creature roars in his face, alerting him to be wary. The scene cuts to the demon's castle in the realm, where the patriarch of the bear's family, Crete, is observing the sight of his servants busy with work. He comments that it's probably because of his daughter's raid attempt that his people are working overtime. Crete doesn't know how to handle the situation. The thing is, if his daughter succeeds, she's going to be granted the right to enter the Saitan, which is supposed to be a demonic school. And even if he strictly orders her to fail, she's going to rebel against his decision anyway. After all, his daughter is hell-bent on achieving her goal of exacting revenge against the murderous humans who killed her mother. Wow, that's a really tragic burden for a girl of her age. Anyway, her papa is worried that she might get tossed around in a ruthless demon school. Suddenly, one of his maids comes to inform him about trouble. Crete is extremely agitated that he was disturbed from his thoughts. The maid apologizes in fear and informs her master that there's news of an unknown person in the hidden domain. They've located several energy traces of the person having opened the door, which is causing great confusion. Also, their identity is still unknown. The only thing they know about the person is that they tried interacting with the door's function from inside. This puts the demon patriarch in a state of contemplation. He wonders if the human was summoned via the demonic gate during the Great War. Believing that the pest will die anyway, he thinks it's an insignificant matter. For now, all he cares about is his daughter's exam going well. Crete amuses the possibility of achieving a pawn from the human side if things go well for him. Anyway, let's go back to our boy who instantly regretted his decision to exit the domain and teleported back inside for his own good. The dude clearly wasn't expecting a damn wolf to eat him alive. The creature is staring at him from outside, while the author realizes just how bad his situation is. Even if he breaks free of the barrier, it's only going to put him in grave danger. Suddenly, the author is enlightened by a realization. The wolf creature is made of stone. This means his ability might work on it. Activating position transfer again, he forces the target to be the stone wolf outside the barrier. His plan successfully worked to an amazing degree, trapping the monster inside and freeing him of the barrier's grasp. The wolf takes a while to realize that it's stuck inside. Despite its many attempts, it is unable to bypass the barrier. Adele makes a run for it and tries to find an exit, when suddenly, Bro runs into another horrifying creature of the abyss. He quickly realizes that there's a mission at every level, and this giant bug looks even more menacing than the wolf he just escaped. The funny thing is, Adele keeps abusing his position transfer ability on the creatures, repeatedly trapping the monsters inside. It is because of their inanimate nature that he can abuse his powers to their fullest extent. Having finally reached the final stage of the hidden domain, a voice calls out to him, congratulating him for reaching the final obstacle. It's surprisingly welcoming, especially to a human like Adele. The author assesses that this must be the boss room, and what he sees is truly terrifying. It's a Death Knight aura farming and showing off his immaculate armor. From the strength being exuded from its body, Adele compares its strength to Captain Feltz. Bro genuinely doesn't even entertain a conversation with the Death Knight and spams the use of his position transfer ability. Before the boss monster is even able to finish his sentence, the poor guy is trapped inside the barrier. Adele moves past and finds the treasure box he was looking for. It's different from his expectations, as he didn't expect a special ornament engraved on it. This black dragon ornament actually represents the highest-ranked demonic families. Among them, there is the sloth family: lust, gluttony, wrath, envy, and finally greed. The black dragon symbol represents the bear's family, denoting the sin of pride. It's also the same family that Crete leads. Of course, this revelation alone is a threat to our boy's existence. He tests his luck and opens the box to find a way to escape. All he cares about for now is to escape the demon realm. But to his horror, a shadowy mist emerges from the box and attacks his face. The dark energy forces its way inside of him. Pause, not that way, it's just going inside. The comments will have a field day with this one. Unable to handle the dark energy, Adele roars in pain as his human body experiences extreme agony. The consequence is a brutal one, implying that his head popped to 1,000,000 pieces. But apparently that's not what happened because he wakes up later and he's still fine. His eye changed as the black liquid attacked him and gave him the Eye of Superbia, a special ocular ability that increases his dynamic eyesight and only activates after killing an enemy. Now Bro thinks he's unstoppable because he can take on dozens of enemies at once. He's impressed by his decision to come to the demonic realm, and from here on out, he prepares himself for what's to come. Ahead of the chest is a giant doorway. Adele wonders how he should act, because there's going to be tons of forces lined up to seize him outside. Going outside practically ensures his death, so he has to think of another way. He amuses the possibility of surrendering faster than light, which is funny, but that's not going to work either. Right now, the issue is that he belongs to the arson family, and the moment the demons find out about him, they're gonna kill him. So he goes on to cover the insignia on his neck. As for the Death Knight from earlier, Bro is out here busting his sword against the barrier and demanding to be freed. The troubled Death Knight alarms him that Her Highness is coming. But of course, Adele has no idea who that is. It was at this moment he finally realized why there were rock beds and jerky around the hidden domain. It's because this hidden domain is a testing ground for the higher families to train their children. It's important for him to know what he's dealing with, so he immediately takes out his special note to communicate with the real Adele. The author inquires about the closest character to him right now. Once again, Adele's soul demands a sacrifice to offer a response to that question. Unfortunately, the author's at a pinch here. So instead of paying with gold or artifacts, he spends 100 points of his mana, which is a brutal way of handling things. Finally, the answer to his question is revealed, as the person most closest to Adele is Renee herself, who is the youngest daughter of the demonic patriarch of the Bears family. Our boy faces an "oh shit I am screwed" realization because there's no way he is beating her. The Eye of Superbia, which he stole, is supposed to be her reward for completing the training, and our boy literally stole the achievement. Because she's got plenty of authority in the demonic army, Adele is assuming that she's going to annihilate the Stone Guardians and show up in front of him. That is exactly what happens as Renee slices the Death Knight to pieces and confronts the human before her. In a serious tone, she demands to know the man's identity. Realizing that there's genuinely no way out of this one, Adele concedes by kneeling before her. He actually manipulates her by telling her that she successfully completed the hidden domain and became worthy. But the demonic princess is genuinely pissed and not having any of it. Sweating bullets knowing he might die here, the author lies to her, telling her that he's supposed to be her bodyguard assigned by her father. He's also glad that she's yet to recognize his possession of the Eye of Superbia. Having distrustful eyes of the vermin before her, she taunts him for looking pathetically weak for being a bodyguard. Adele emphasizes that he's actually quite capable despite his looks, and he's slowly growing optimistic of this meeting. She lowers her blade and laughs. In an effort to earn her trust, Adele switches positions with her sword and shocks Renee by appearing before her eyes. He doesn't do anything to attack her though, and simply asks if she was impressed by his capabilities. Renee grabs his hand in Ange before snapping away. She doesn't say anything, which makes him boggle his mind wondering what she thinks of him now. Playing it casual, he tells her they should head out together as the patriarch is waiting for her arrival. This man is a top-tier gaslighter, goddamn. Adele also tells her that he's going to be taking care of other duties that he's been assigned by her father. Inside, he knows he's got to hurry up and get the fudge out or else he's doomed. Finally, he opens the door, causing Renee to become startled at the sight of her father. She wasn't expecting him to be here with his men. Intrigued by the whole situation, Crete finds interest in the human. Meanwhile, our boy is out here questioning his existence because now he's got to come up with an excuse to fool her dad too. He's going to be killed on the spot if they realize what he's done, but for some reason, Crete has yet to lift a finger. Crete attends to his daughter and asks if she cleared the domain. After confirming that she did, the patriarch requests the human to follow after him. Not knowing what's in store for him, the author ponders what's about to happen. He quickly follows suit, and he can't even consult the special note anymore because he doesn't have enough mana or things to offer. Having arrived inside the family mansion of the Bears family, Crete signals everyone else to return to their quarters. Glad that he's being given the chance to escape, Adele is celebrating on the inside. That is, until he realizes that there are guards secretly watching his ass in case he tries to defy orders. In his office, Crete meets his daughter, emphasizing that Renee has successfully completed the final task. But he still wants her to be sure of her decision to enter the training school. Renee is determined to go and answers yes. Crete goes quiet for a moment, before asking about the human she encountered in the reward stage. Recalling the way he shocked her with his powers, Renee confirms him to be a strong person. This pleases the patriarch's ears, causing him to be eager about the mysterious human. He concludes their discussion by approving of his daughter's admission to the Saitan school. As for Crete, Bro isn't even thinking about his daughter. He's more impressed by the human who entered the domain and cleared it on his own. Not to mention that he claimed the Eye of Superbia, and yes, this basically confirms that he knows about our boy being in possession of it. Finally, Rene's opinion is the most assuring confirmation he could receive. All of these factors point to one thing. He could use the human to his benefit. While this is happening, the clueless author is wondering just how long he's going to have to wait for them to finish up. At last, the human is given directions to the patriarch's room. He appears before Crete, who stares him down with a menacing glare. Adele is already afraid of what's to come, and wonders how the demon patriarch is going to handle this. He inquires why Crete permitted him to live. The patriarch carves a smile on his face before cursing him out for having the gall to fool his daughter to an impressive degree. Also, he casts an overwhelming amount of aura, to the point Adele is forced to submit beneath it. He realizes that the patriarch doesn't intend to kill the human, which is an observation that Crete finds amusing. Releasing the pressure, he allows the human to regain his composure. But Adele is out here panicking from the experience he just had. Crete is impressed by the human's sharp wits and inquires for his name. Adele responds with his name without including his family's ties. The patriarch then uses his demonic force to manipulate the human's body. At this point, our boy is genuinely clueless on what this dude actually wants from him. Crete orders him to open his mouth. Whoa, pause again. The demon patriarch shares that all he has to do is continue on with the story he was telling his daughter. While this is happening, a dark energy enters our boy's mouth, choking him from the inside out. Crete reminds him that the poison inside his body will kill the human instantly if he ever tries to deceive them. Adele is out here choking on his words, while Crete casually tells him that he's going to offer him a nice place to stay for later orders. The one-sided encounter meets its end with Adele at a loss for words. In the next scene, he is shown his new quarters to stay. Unfortunately, Adele doesn't have much choice but to accept what he was given in this shabby house. He's glad enough that his life was spared for the time being, even though it feels like he's being used as a tool. Also, the author is glad to have earned the patriarch's acknowledgement, which may turn out favorable for him in the long run. As far as his goals are considered, the dude has to do something about the damn poison inside of his body. Smartly making use of his position transfer ability, Adele forces the inanimate poison out of his body. He can't even think about what horrors would have been caused if something else had been teleported from his body instead. Anyway, Adele doesn't want to kill the poisonous creature, knowing it will alert the demon patriarch. The creature wakes up because its mana supply was cut off. Finally, Adele collapses on his bed, knowing he's no longer threatened by the poison. The tiny creature is snoozing right next to him. He's at the verge of sleeping when the status window opens, alarming him of his upgrade in abilities. Position transfer reached level 2, but the mana costs are too demanding. Adele wonders if there's a way for him to actually increase his mana pool so that he can hold his own against the main characters of the story. He figures out that there's indeed a way to achieve this effect. The scene cuts to Rene's expressionless face as she disapproves of our boy's plan. So far, he's been keeping checks on her for the past 3 days. Bro is getting ghosted in real life. That's how bad his situation is. The author assumes that she must have had a brighter personality, but thanks to the loss of her mother, it has made her ruthless and distant. Even as the author, he feels sorry for what happened to her. The servants of the patriarch call out to both Adele and Rene because Crete has summoned them. Adele thinks that it must be regarding Rene's entrance to the demonic school of Saitan. Of course, despite her accomplishment of successfully clearing the hidden domain, Saitan was on another level. Crete tells his daughter that she's destined to die after a while, and if that happens, she'll never be able to achieve her goals. This causes Rene an air of disappointment and sadness. Meanwhile, Adele is out here feeling like a third wheel to a parent-daughter conversation. To both of their shock, the demon patriarch entrusts her bodyguard to help keep her safe. To his surprise, the girl literally rejects this offer, which is really funny considering that she's willing to trample over her own goals just to get away from our boy. The thing about Saitan is that it's the only school where the promising heirs of multiple demonic realms gather. They're constantly experiencing conflict with the imperial school of the main characters. And in the original story, Rene was destined to face her death because of the conflict. It's the worst location on the planet, because death is always just a matter of time for the demons there. Despite that, Rene is prepared to go there. As for Adele, he thinks it's the perfect place for him to increase his manpower and his network. After all, since he's the author, he knows about the events of the story that will occur at the school. Shooting his shot, Adele agrees to go, but he has one final request. The author requests something related to mana, which the demon patriarch finds amusing, because he thought the human would try and negotiate his way out of the poison. The good thing is, Crete has yet to catch on to the fact that Adele no longer has poison inside of his body. Crete curses him but considers his request. Now that they're alone, Adele wonders what the demon patriarch will offer him for mana. Crete reveals that this particular treasure is part of his family's legacy, so he wants this matter to be confidential. Understanding that the human's mana is basically insignificant, The demon patriarch is prepared to lend him a power that will help him survive for his daughter's sake. Crete channels his demonic energy and declares that he will teach the humans the cultivation technique of their family, which bewilders Adele's expectations and shocks him to the core. The demon patriarch requests the aid of the demon god to bestow the powers of the demons upon a human. Crete's chant comes to an end and his body is flared up with purple demonic energy. A smile is formed on the patriarch's face, who is impressed that our boy's mental fortitude is impressive to have maintained his sanity even after the power boost. Adele learns that his cultivation technique will help him receive mana directly via the demon god, which means he's pretty much got an overpowered storage of mana now. Interestingly, Crete has noticed that the human's family has its ties to the 7 deadly sins. Though the human attempts to feign ignorance, the demon patriarch emphasizes that he's not worried about any betrayal schemes coming from the human. After all, the poison worm will take care of everything if he did in fact turn out to be a spy. The author is rather surprised to learn of the half-demon's family being connected to the 7 deadly sins, even though he, as the writer, never really included this in the original story. Crete tells him to leave, and in the next scene, we catch our boy in the forest meditating on his own. He believes this place should be suitable for him to practice his powers, especially when mana is easy to spiral out of control. Normal meditation seems calming and peaceful, right? Well, not for this guy. He's getting tensed up asking for the demon god's help, reflecting that he won't be able to use human mana ever again after this. Still, he doesn't have a choice, and has to fight for his survival here. Menacing eyes glare at him from the sky. The demon god deems this human a filthy disgrace, and even goes on to roar at him for carrying the blood of a traitor. It's funny to me how Adele is so sharp and slow at the same time. He's out here asking the demon god if he's truly the entity that governs the demons. In this world, this god is known as the god of pride. Adele asks if he's going to survive this experience. The demon god emphasizes that he would be dead already if he wanted that. But strangely, it chooses not to kill him, because for some reason, it feels an unexplained feeling of kinship with him. That's why it is willing to help humans by bestowing upon them a mark of pride. This insignia is the representation of the god of pride's powers. However, the deity warns him not to lose his composure to such powers as they will make him insane. Adele has now acquired the power of a god, increasing his chances of survival in this hellish dimension. At this point, he thinks his entire body will end up getting covered with marks and tattoos. Suddenly, the author senses the presence of someone spying on him from behind. Renee gets spotted, much to both of their shock. This is really bad for him, because her father clearly didn't want her to know about this. She mutters the words "dark priest," which fly right over his head. Fast-forwarding a month ahead, Adele has been training relentlessly, and his mana supply has tripled in that short period of training. He suspects that he'll have enough mana accumulated to surpass the heirs of all 6 houses of the human realm in a few years. In his current state, he can easily conquer the hidden domain without teleporting. Apart from that, Bro is questioning why Renee has been lately training in front of his house, instead of the training grounds. To satiate his curiosity, he decides to confront her. Thankfully, Renee hasn't been avoiding him like she stubbornly used to. Adele thinks the girl probably misunderstands him as some kind of priest who can communicate with the demon god. After all, they're the only ones who can communicate with the demon god. Thankfully, she didn't overhear the exact conversation he shared with the god of pride. But in this case, being treated as a superior to the demon king's daughter will only increase trouble for him. Addressing her once more, Adele requests that she treat him the same way she used to. However, the girl feels a bit shameful for treating him coldly after seeing his powers. Acting as her bodyguard, he reminds Renee that he's merely following orders, so he too wants to be treated comfortably. Renee decides to follow his words and orders him to fetch her water. Bro doesn't get what she's scheming. Renee emphasizes that she's just following what he said just now by treating him coldly. Adele realizes that this guy is going to have to follow her every word at this point. Dude just can't win here. Having brought her some water, he assesses that he must conquer a domain, but unfortunately Renee is glued to him everywhere he goes. There's the issue of the main character of the story passing over to the demonic realm soon. He doesn't want the treasure of that domain to be lost, because its reward will help him survive Saitan. The author asks about her preparations for the enrollment exam. Renee is a bit surprised he's asking a question like that. Adele reasons that she's going to have to fight the strongest humans eventually, so it worries him to ask. Renee doesn't seem to be worried at all, though, stating that she's got everything prepared. Adele suggests she double-check, because it could always end up being a thorn in her path if she forgot something important. Renee is pissed off by his imprecise language. Adele reveals that he's genuinely concerned for her. But this girl is sharp. She's not ready to be manipulated so easily. She quickly noticed that he wants to go on his own in her absence. Bro meets a dead end with his approach, while Renee is out here annoyed that he might be getting bored of her. To calm her down, Adele finally reveals the truth of his interest in conquering a domain nearby. Instead of getting pissed off, she actually goes into a contemplative state. She tells him that she's actually forgotten something, just like he said. At first, our boy was as happy as he could be, but then she reveals that what she forgot is actually her warming up for the training. Long story short, the girl wants to go with him to conquer the domain and warm up her skills. She thinks it would easily be conquerable in one day. Of course, Adele is worried, but he can't exactly deny her as his superior. Let's explore more about this secret domain. It's titled the Domain of the Undead, so you can only expect what's going to come next. The Domain of the Undead was once ruled by the necromancers, but now, it's nothing more than an abandoned site filled with the undead soldiers after the necromancers were killed in the war. Renee has extensive knowledge about the domain, and it brings her worry because it's dangerous, as it's a middle-upper level domain. Right now, the number of the undead soldiers is worrisome. That's why Renee's help will be necessary in this mission. The only problem is, going together will make it harder for him to escape with her. And if the news reaches the Patriarch's ears, he's going to get in trouble for putting her in danger. So that's why he requests her not to come, highlighting the Patriarch's reaction for leaving without his permission. But this demonic girl is already prepared. She knows a secret exit from the mansion. She takes him to the secret hole that no one knows about. Adele realizes that she must be used to sneaking out for doing this so casually. Renee doesn't respond to him, and they quickly use the exit to leave. Arriving in a misty mountain range, the duo walks ahead. Adele asks about how long it will take, but this seems to earn an annoyed reaction from her. He realizes he messed up and tells her they'll just go ahead. Anyway, Renee explains that they're going to have to climb over the mountain, and that will be it. For her, this is easy to say, but for our boy, he's suffering inside. Finally, they're at the desired location. The place is destroyed and abandoned. Renee is out here cursing in her language, while the author believes he's got to hide his family name from her no matter what. Now, since he knows the way inside, the duo digs their way ahead. The domain rests under a large rock statue, which soldiers situated underneath to protect their lands. Having arrived at the entrance of the place, Adele offers to take the lead for her, but Renee is confident and wants to go on ahead. Inside the domain, Adele is impressed by how bright it is. Renee finally leads him to the exact location they were looking for. From its energy alone, the author judges that it's an even more powerful region than the bears' training grounds. He suspects 100 graves to be buried here at least. Renee and our boy are moving on ahead when suddenly, a bonehead and his fellow friends emerge from the ground. These bald bags of bones surround the duo from every direction. Channeling her abilities, Renee unleashes her advance and disintegrates the skeletal soldiers like paper. Right now, Adele is really glad that he brought her along. He understands that at least one necromancer must be casting the use of the soldiers, so they need to target him. He blocks an attack and tells Renee that he'll be right behind her. The defeated soldiers only end up resurrecting again, much to her shock. The necromancer leading his troops stares them down, impressed by their audacity to step foot in the domain. He ordered his soldiers to eliminate both intruders. This is bad for the duo because the undead soldiers keep on reviving. Adele instructs her to keep on advancing and target the necromancer. As for him, he's busy helping create an opening so she can execute on her goal here. Defeating more of the soldiers, the author tells her that he's got this side covered, so she can focus on her role. Channeling her powers, the demon patriarch's daughter lunges forth to kill the necromancer. The mage summons even more soldiers to stop them, but Adele thinks they need to focus on taking him out quickly. If they can break the caster's orb, this battle will be as good as gone as he can then use Position Transfer's new ability. Well, their troubles shoot up to 1,000,000 when a goddamn King Kong-sized skeleton is summoned out of nowhere. Adele is worried for Renee, but instead of getting beat like any weakling manhwa character would, this girl actually ends up defeating the creature in a full swing. She is much more powerful than Adele thought. With this, he activates Position Transfer to catch up to the necromance, closing their distance. His newest ability allows him to swap objects with each other instead of himself. So he casts Exchange, which relinquishes the orb from the necromancer's grasp and places it directly in Adele's hand. That's all they needed really, because the bonehead mage is basically about to get fucked without being able to cast anything. With the orb crushed and finished, the necromancer is automatically defeated along with his summons. Thanks to their combined efforts, they were successful in taking down the threat. Interestingly, the necromancer's final words are one of gratitude for the human. Adele faces a stark realization. He's the one who wrote the tragedy of this place in his story. And because of that, he really feels sad for his characters, and hopes that they're now finally able to rest in peace. Renee questions if there's anything else for them to do beyond the boss battle. Of course, there's the reward collection. Finally, he'll be able to get his hands on the item he so desperately requires. The item is called the Fang of Darkness, a dagger made from a special steel of the demon realm. With it, it can convert darkness into mana and increase one's abilities in the dark. The second item is a ring called the Eternal Full Moon, allowing the user to quickly absorb mana with moonlight. Adele is quite impressed by the dagger, and realizes that he can max out his darkness trait with this weapon. As for the ring, he doesn't really have any use for it, so he turns to Renee and offers it to her. She's okay with the reward and accepts it. Acting like a gentleman, Adele places it on her finger, causing her to visibly blush from the experience. She quickly draws her hand away, acting cutely in confusion. Our dense protagonist has no idea why she's acting in this manner. Renee, still feeling flustered, feels the effects of the ring coursing through her body. She really likes it. Next up, Adele decides to keep all of the gold from this place. But Bro's dreams are ruined when Renee goes into her killing machine mode and warns him not to be selfish. With the domina finished, the duo return to the mansion right before dinner. Next, they continue to train together, and another month passed eventually. The author was making great progress in the demon realm. He'd acquired just about 1,300 mana, which is comparable to the mid-tier demons in the realm. Finally, the demon patriarch summoned them a few days later, permitting them the chance to enter Saitan at last. The time has come for both of them. They will be going to the capital for the entrance exam. With their preparations wrapped up, the patriarch orders them to just leave. He doesn't even care about a proper farewell. Seeing Renee's expression, Adele realizes she is sad. She simply bows before her father and leaves. Next up, our boy does the same to accompany her. But before he leaves, Crete stops to remind him that he's got high expectations for the human. And this scene is sad in a way the patriarch is wishing a human some hope, but not his own daughter who needs it the most. In the next scene, their carriage is prepared as Crete stares them down from above. The author notices that even demons must have considerate feelings for their children because he can tell Crete really cares about his daughter. Right now, the author may be worried about his future, but he's willing to do whatever it takes to achieve his goals in the demonic school of Saitan. Their journey starts off with a bumpy ride. Ever since they left the mansion, Renee has been scarily quiet. He wonders if he's at fault. At last, she turns to look at him with a strong glare, reflecting how he is much more handsome than she initially thought. Bro is getting rizzed up by a demon baddie. That should have been me. Like an average Joe fumbling with a goth girl, this man is out here chatting about the weather because he doesn't have anything else to talk about. Even she thinks he's kinda dense, and that he isn't really particularly strong. At this point, she's doubting her assumptions of his rank as a priest. Meanwhile, Adele is questioning what's up with all the staring. Renee calls herself stupid for doubting his powers when she witnessed his conversation with the literal god of pride itself. The way they're thinking about each other is funny, because Adele thinks he's in trouble while she's out here catching feelings for our boy. Now let's talk about the thing our boy did earlier by giving her the ring. It's actually called an eternal vow in their dimension, and it's basically their way of marrying someone. Even though Adele did it without uttering a word, she's curious about the kind of vow he made when doing such a thing. The once expressionless demon is really interested in knowing his feelings. Anyway, Adele reminds her that they'll be arriving in an hour. His empty words only make her even more pissed because the chick was out here daydreaming a romance in her head. Without telling him anything, she simply goes on to take a nap, keeping Adele in a mystery. An hour later, they step outside the carriage with their luggage packed. The capital of the demon realm is huge, and it resembles the human realm's capital a lot. Even though the demons here have horns and some physical differences, they're not too hard to differ from humans. The elite demons are known for having marks on their body, like a blonde who has it on his neck. Renee tells him to keep up and he follows suit, asking where they're headed. Since the entrance exam is in 2 days, they'll need to register before that. Since it's in 2 days, Adele suggests touring the capital in that time, but she appears disinterested and doesn't want to travel. Adele still thinks he messed up, but once again, she shuts him down to register for the exam. Recalling the backstory he wrote for her, the author realizes that Renee never left her house because of her mother's death. So she should be feeling freedom here, but for some reason she's appearing disinterested in her surroundings. Anyway, they're in Saitan at last, an incredible university that is triple the size of an ordinary one. The receptionist here is an old man taking care of the registration process. Adele steps up to speak on his lady's behalf, much to the guy's shock as he points out that Adele doesn't even look like a demon to begin with. Even worse, the egghead calls him out for being a half-demon trying to apply to Saitan's exam. At this point, our boy knows that his future here is going to be really painful to deal with. The angry egghead continues his rant until he recognizes the horns of the demonic princess. Renee mentions that she's from the House Bears and that her guard will be admitting along with her. Humpty Dumpty follows her words, even though he calls the guard a pathetic half-demon trying to enroll in the best demon academy. Renee is done listening to his arrogant words and reveals a hint of her power for insulting the Bears family. Bro wants to get in trouble for no reason. Just do your job, baldhead. Anyway, Adele mentions his name and house association to House Pixie. And with that, the registration process is finished. To explain why the receptionist is behaving this way, the author internalizes that the half-demons actually ended up banding with the humans in the war. That's mostly why the pure-blooded demons are mad about them. Anyway, with the registration finished, They need to get to their inn for the night. Having located a nice-looking tavern, Adele thinks it should do the trick. But this rich and spoiled brat has her own complaints about the taverns here. Adele reminds her that they don't have her daddy's money to play with, so their options are limited. Crete only parted them with 10 gold coins, which will only be enough for them to live up to a month. After all, House Bears suffered major losses after losing the war, so they can't afford to overspend. The duo heads inside to book a room. Adele does all the talking for her. The funny thing is, Renee gets embarrassed the moment she hears the receptionist asking if they want to share a room, because it implies the birds and the bees, and I don't think that needs more explaining, folks. The dude insists upon having separate rooms. Since they'll have 2 different rooms, it will cost them 2 gold coins in total. It's not the worst deal ever, according to the author. Renee heads upstairs while Adele shares that he'll unpack the luggage while she can rest. Since she's always lived in a giant mansion, the author suspects that it's her first ever experience of living in a shabby place like this. But it is necessary for her to get used to it as fast as possible. As for him, he's going to need all the rest he can get for the exam ahead. At last, the 2 days passed and the day of the exam is here. Applicants are told to follow strict instructions. There's so many applicants around them, which makes the author wonder if there are at least 100 candidates. The fact that so many of these talented people are signing up to kill the humans is enough of a warning sign to our boy, because the moment his identity is leaked, they're all going to jump him. The supervisor of the exam orders the students to bring out their ID and board the train. It's the last thing he expected in the demon realm. For the demons, they've actually set up dimensional gates to block intruders from entering their realm. Trains are the only way to cross paths in Saitan, and at this point, the author wonders just how large Saitan really is for having a train system installed so easily. The 2 of them board the train and arrive at their destination in mere moments. Finally, they're in front of the Grand Demon Academy. Applicants are told to follow their guide and enter the auditorium for their exam. They walk inside. Adele is left speechless by the luxurious ornaments. Every glance is overwhelming to him. He also notices that only young demons have come to take the exam, which makes it likely that the other heirs of the 7 deadly sins also showed up. Donning full black trench coats, the author realizes that these people must be the instructors. Now, he wants to make a positive impression right away to increase his chances of having a good time in this hellhole. Renee mentions that their exam is about to begin. The doors immediately snap shut, and the once illuminated bright place turns disturbingly dark. The author suspects that magic was used to achieve this effect, and he's curious about the content of the exam. The first order is from an instructor who demands the applicants to quiet down. Wearing a distinct appearance and a short stature, she welcomes them all to Saitan, and instantly starts cursing the shit out of the lousy candidates. She openly admits that she's looking forward to seeing them get killed this year. Wow, what a welcome. Adele is trembling by the sheer weight of her voice. Carving a malicious smile, the girl gets serious to attend to their business. She begins the exam procedure without warning them another word. The pressure exerted from her body is enough to cause every student to feel overwhelmed. One after another, the weak candidates are filtered out swiftly. The instructors aren't surprised by the headmaster's cruel way of handling the exam. Yeah, that crazy psycho chick is actually the headmaster of the academy. Also, this test is one of mental fortitude. The reason Headmaster Lucian selected this test is because she wants to see if the candidates have enough power to withstand an interrogation by the humans if the situation comes to it. 5 painful minutes were endured by the candidates, and almost none of them were left standing, except for Renee and Adele and 6 others. The instructor initially had high expectations from the 100 candidates that showed up to take the exam. Still, it's more impressive than last year, which is a good improvement already. This batch of candidates especially includes the heirs of the 7 deadly sins. The instructors are confident of their arrival. However, they're shocked to find an unknown guy holding his ground. This kid is different from the heirs of the demonic families, and the fact that he maintained his sanity for 10 minutes is proof of his caliber. However, beyond this point, the instructors believe that the kid will cripple and fall. Though Adele is experiencing extreme agony, the male instructor senses a pulsing dark energy exuding from his body. They're all shocked, including the headmaster Lucian. Bro is out here looking like a demon god himself with this sudden transformation. Sensing the danger of the situation at hand, the male instructor senses the need to act and kill the candidate at once. At first glance, it was clear to everyone that the boy didn't appear special, but the moment he caused the very atmosphere around him to crumble, they recognized his hellish killing intent. It was a ruthless intent, as if he were one of the worst murderers ever known. That's why the instructor immediately wanted to act. But despite his preparation to act, Lucian observes that the instructor is hesitant. He is afraid of taking on a formidable threat, even though the kid is nothing more than an applicant. His colleague smiles, while the rest of the candidates are exhausted. At this moment, our boy understands that if he doesn't find a way to endure this test, he's going to crumble his mental state and go crazy, like the god of pride warned him. Then a plan sparks up in his mind. What if he used his killing intent to go against the aura of the girl conducting the test? So he does exactly that, knowing that he can't just wait around. His body exerts tendrils of red demonic energy, countering the headmaster's aura. Lucian is so impressed she wants to increase the intensity of her aura to make him submit. But the author is at the verge of going insane and actually holds his own, even after Lucian's increased intensity. It earns her attention, and at last, he succeeds in surviving the test. Even though he should be worrying about himself, his attention turns to Renee, who is holding her ground without much trouble. The same goes for the remaining heirs of the 7 deadly sins. The heir of envy, Baltan, and prone of lust, Samuel of gluttony, Aaron of sloth, and Guar of greed. They're all holding their ground. The author remarks that he wrote some of the characters with passion, but in the end, these meaningful characters all get killed by the heroes of the story. He takes notice of the 6 members and finally turns his eyes to the heir of wrath. Donning beautiful long hair of snowy white, she has a crown of thorns and scarlet merciless eyes. It was at this moment that he was staring down the worst villain of the story he wrote. He was facing the future demon lord Diana. The first part of the exam is concluded, but Adele is busy gathering his thoughts. Now the demon king typically comes from the family of wrath, so Diana basically doesn't have any need to be here at all. And yet, despite being a successor to the demon lord, she's come to apply as a candidate. So he wonders if something went wrong in the story. Anyway, the candidates who failed are being little bitches for being unable to pass the test. Most of them are spoiled brats who are complaining about the nature of the cruel exam. But the instructors don't give a damn about them being trust fund babies of their daddy. They make that part very clear to these rich imbeciles. The male instructor emphasizes that the applicants who couldn't even survive for 5 minutes are unneeded in the academy. And so, the gates are closed on the failed candidates. This first exam alone is enough to show just how ruthless the demonic academy is for treating its candidates. Luckily, Adel passed, and he also observes that Lucian is actually the headmaster instead of a typical supervisor. She alone is the strongest person in the demonic realm, despite her cute-looking character design. Though he was lucky to survive the first test, he needs to hold his ground for the ones remaining. After all, most people fail in the second exam. While this is happening, the author notices that Renee is gathering a ton of eyeballs. She's got a lot of fans for being super strong with her combat ability. It only makes sense that the heirs of the 7 deadly sins are famous figures. They were able to withstand Lucian's aura as well. Poor Adele is a bit disappointed that he isn't getting noticed like all the others, especially since he stood his ground. Renee comes around praising her so-called bodyguard for passing. Though he passed, the author is satisfied to have shown to the instructors that he isn't a normal candidate. With this impression, they will be sure to remember him, or so he thinks. The male headmaster demands their attention and properly introduces himself as Ares, the instructor in charge of their education. This guy looks so intimidating that Adele thinks he probably keeps a secret knife in his pockets at all times. Ares congratulates the candidates who passed, and elaborates on the test's purpose to test their mental fortitude in case they were to be interrogated by humans. The 8 applicants who survived will be granted extra points, and if they succeed in the second exam, they'll all gain access to the weaponry. It's Christmas for our boy, who is as happy as he can be for getting a chance to obtain such a prize. Well, the other candidates are equally as annoyed for failing even more now. Ares starts by explaining the nature of the second exam. First, they will show off their abilities, regarding the kind of talents they each possess to face the humans. They will be assigned a class depending on this specific exam, so they must be careful to bring out their best. Adele understands what is being asked of the applicants here, though he wonders what kind of humans they'll be going up against in this exam. Ares showcases them the opponent they will be facing for this special exam, and with the snap of his fingers, he summons a creature born from the essence of light. Donning a distinct set of armor and a recognizable sword, Adele immediately realizes that they're about to get destroyed at the hands of the strongest hero among the 6 great human families. It's basically the definition of fighting the final boss of the game while you're at level 2. It doesn't make any sense for this overpowered dude to be here. Renee observes his reaction and wonders if he knows about the guy. Of course, poor Adele can't even reveal that they're going to go up against Ninai Sel, the head of the Ninai house, and a man closely related to the protagonist of the main story. To make matters even worse, the author internalizes that John Wick's overpowered cousin over here is actually the protagonist's father, the sword saint who stands unrivaled with his sheer talent alone. Some of the candidates are smart enough to recognize who he is, and they've already given up hope to pass this test. It's not a surprise they know about him, since this guy is a one-man army responsible for bringing down multiple demon houses on his own. Of course, even Ares understands that the kids will get massacred in a full-on battle against the sword saint. That's why Ninai Sel won't be using more than 10% of his strength in the fight. Initially, Renee thinks this test is about to be way too easy with those odds. But the author carefully reminds her that they're facing a literal apocalypse-level threat inside the body of a human. Even at 10% of his output, the Sword Saint can easily wipe out cities. This makes Adele curious about how these applicants will overcome the exam. He thinks that there must be some kind of criteria in place, and while the information scroll could be really useful here, he doesn't have any money to waste on it. Ares announces that they're going to be dividing the applicants in teams of 4 to take him head-on. To make it even fair for the applicants who scored exceptionally well, the top 8 will all be separated from each other, and the remaining candidates will be assigned at random. Bro is really happy to be included in that list, while Renee is a bit ticked off that her teammates are freeloading off of her. As for Adele's team, yeah, these guys are already giving him hell for simply existing in the same team. Renee gives him a cute tap on his shoulder, gesturing to him to return safely. Adele happily wishes her the same, and that's how 33 groups were formed. Adele was the leader of the last group, and his team members include Kina, Chris, and Sanchez. He doesn't recognize a single one of those names as the author, which means they're pretty much NPC characters without any specialty in moving the plot. Kina and Chris are really nice and greet him well, but Sanchez appears to be a stuck-up emo bitch with issues. He immediately attacks our boy with his words, shaming him for being a half-demon. The situation is so bad for the author that even the NPC trash characters are out here grilling his ass. Anyway, he ignores it and encourages the group to do their best. First off, he wants to clear off some roles for his team. So he starts with Chris in an effort to know about their abilities and skill sets better. Chris cooperates nicely, showcasing his mana transformation ability to morph a triangular prism into armor and sword. Though his abilities lack high killing intent, they are versatile and can be used in a number of ways. This is a really good sign to Adele, who wanted this kind of teammate. Kina is next and explains that she's a support player instead of a damage doer. With her powers, she can amplify the speed of her allies by offering a prayer to the demon god. After casting her buff on Adele, she feels really exhausted, but our boy teases her by making light of her ability. Anyway, this is really bad for him. The chick's buff is practically weak as hell, so he's got no idea how she managed to pass. Last up is Sanchez, who showcases his rock-type enhancement ability. Bro is out here turning into Super Saiyan Brown. It's not bad for a tank-type fighter. At last, Sanchez demands the leader to show his abilities. Tossing a ring in his direction, our boy casually teleports up to him with godlike speed, stunning Sanchez as he could have killed him at any second in a real battle. Kina and Chris are really impressed by their leader's unique teleportation ability. In his mind, the author willingly chose to keep the rest of his powers a secret, because he just doesn't know what they're going to be up against in the future. As for their team formation, he wants Chris and Sanchez to prioritize defense. He will take the center and Kina will support from the rear. That sounds like a good enough formation for the test, so they all agree in unison. And with that, the second exam is about to start as Ares calls the designated teams to step up. Group 1 is first in line. The author is impressed to find the candidates possessing blazing eyes of determination, even though they were going up against the Sword Saint. Well, not that it matters, because the moment the exam begins, it also ends in that very small instant. Group 1 is decimated, and not even Adele could see the Sword Saint in that small duration. Ares calls for Group 2, which also gets annihilated. Group 3 meets the same fate, and upon calling Group 4, the candidates rebel against the nature of the ridiculous exam, calling it rigged from the start. Ares excludes the 2 complaining candidates from the test, and asks the remaining 2 members if they want to still participate. Adele notices a blonde kid actually going forward with the exam, despite being handicapped. And it is at this moment, he reflects that this must be the hidden part of the puzzle to succeed in the second exam. Group 4's test initiates with the 2 kids facing the Sword Saint. The outcome of this battle is already decided as both of them are defeated in an instant. Now if he used real aura, they would be in pieces. Even our boys' team is doubting their abilities now. Sanchez is practically shaking in his boots. The Sword Saint continues to annihilate the groups until Group 10 steps up and immediately forfeits. At last Group 20 is called and all teams until 30 are wiped out from there on. Not even one of them could land a proper strike. It was a fight against an unbeatable opponent. To his shock, one of the candidates actually blocked one attack. Interestingly, Adele noticed that fights are getting longer and longer because of the skill difference for each group. Now, he is even more certain of the passing condition for the test. Their team is a bit scared because they're about to go up against him soon. Of course, our boy tells them about his genius plan. He's figured out the criteria of the test and believes that they should fight and persevere for as long as they can. After observing the way the instructors are handling the applicants, he is even more sure of his theory. Sanchez tries to object, but it's too late as their group is called up front. Our boy is confident enough to believe they will defeat the Sword Saint in a head-on battle. His words encourage his team and they are prepared to last the longest among the duels seen so far. Deep down, Adele is planning to use the talent of the strongest villain in the story to manipulate the odds in his favor. The fight begins with an interesting formation of Chris, Sanchez, Adele, and finally their support. Since he doesn't have much information about the Sword Saint compared to other characters, he wonders what they should do in this difficult situation. He tells the team to get in formation as the Sword Saint unleashes his first strike. Our boy roars to inform them ahead of time, but with a single swing of his blade, the barrier shield is shattered, and even Sanchez can't block the attack. The author tells Kina to prioritize enforcing Chris so they can prevent the impact of his fall after he was blown away. Next, he tells Sanchez to do his job, which is basically to withstand the full brunt of the attack. Thanks to his hardening ability as a tank, they were able to block the first attack. Adele sharply assesses a gap between the second slash and realizes that it has been a trap from his opponent. He doesn't want to exploit it because he believes it is a bait to draw them in. Anyway, focusing on the battle, he informs his squad of the second incoming attack. The team gets in position, but Chris is the first to face his limitations. Right now, only one attack was able to wipe out their team. So this next one will finish the job if they are not careful. The Sword Saint unleashed his attack, showcasing the same opening. This time, not even Sanchez can withstand its force as his body is getting severe cuts from defending his team. Sanchez thinks they're gonna die, but Adele is persistent in holding out for as long as possible, questioning his opponent's next move. At last, the Sword Saint lowers his blade. Unfortunately, the test is yet to be concluded. The Sword Saint is about to unleash a final attack, but Adele wants to confront it head-on. Carving a malicious expression on his face, the author declares that he will plunge a sword against his opponent's throat, a declaration that shocks his team. The Sword Saint prepares his final attack, and Adele tells Sanchez to withstand the blow without Chris's intervention. It's a crazy idea, but Adele knows what he's doing. The Sword Saint practically demolishes Sanchez's armor and sends him flying toward the ceiling. It's at this moment that the author utilizes position transfer to switch places with Sanchez, and in the small opening he was given, he activates position transfer again to concentrate on his opponent's sword. After terminating the blade from his hand, he targets the Sword Saint head-on, aiming to drive the black dagger against his opponent's throat as a final checkmate. The attack shocks the rest of the instructors, but unfortunately for our boy, he still misses to land the clear hit and gets kicked so hard that he chokes out blood. Still, being a persistent opponent in this battle, the author activates his darkness trait to engulf their surroundings. It's only thanks to Chris's barrier from earlier that he survived the kick, or else his body would have been crippled. Though his attack failed, he successfully trapped the Sword Saint inside a barrier without a trace of light. In this void, he has the clear advantage with the Blade of Darkness in his hand. In a place like this, it basically has limitless attack potential, so he is confident in his approach. Or so he thought, because the Sword Saint menacingly turns back and shoots him a glare, before appearing right before his eyes for another attack. Even Adele thinks he's facing a monster more demonic than any demon. But luckily, thanks to his control over the dark, he pulls the dagger from a blind spot and targets his opponent. This time, the Sword Saint failed to anticipate that our boy could cast hundreds of dimensional daggers. He activates the skill as it pierces the Sword Saint's body like projectiles, impaling him throughout. The state of the black void confuses Adele's teammates, while Ares realizes the fight is over. From the shadowy mist emerges one warrior standing and one defeated on the ground. Adele is the victor, and his performance has left the candidates speechless. His strategy worked, and even impressed one of the heirs. His teammates come rushing to him for his brilliant plan. Our boy is smart, and doesn't dive into the details of how he beat the Sword Saint. As for Sanchez, the poor guy is in a terrible state, but he's being helped out by the instructors. To his teammates' surprise, the exam isn't over. As Adele explains, they have to execute one last step. Plunging the blade deep into his opponent's body, the author showcases his ruthlessness to the instructors, even amusing the heirs. Fran thinks he's quite impressive for being a half-demon. However, she thinks he's still naturally inferior to pure bloods. Her words just now piss the heck out of Renee, who is releasing a murderous aura to signal her response. Fran wonders what's causing the bear's princess to act up with such viciousness. It sends a chill down her spine. The 7 deadly sins are already working their way, trying to intimidate each other for the sake of rivalry. Fran's servants are lousy simps who think she will win against Renee. Back to Adele, he notices Renee radiating bloodlust and wonders what's up. But that's not important as the instructor Ares approaches him and questions if the boy knows why he's here. Seeing his nonchalant response, Ares turns away, reminding the boy that he will be keeping close watch over him. Adele is a little disappointed he didn't get praised or something like that. Right now, a battle between Renee and Fran is being set up. Adele wonders about the identity of the demon Renee is facing. From air appearance, he realizes that she belongs to the House of Lust. But it doesn't make any sense that she's challenging Renee of all people. The author admits that he's naive for only writing deeply about his human characters and neglecting his demon characters. Franz sees the half-blood from the distance and calls him out for it. Bro wasn't expecting that, but this crazy chick makes it even worse by ordering him to become her slave. Hearing that, Renee gets even more fired up to kill the bitch, and she dives in to unleash her first attack. Seeing her guard being disrespected by the embodiment of lust, Lady Renee charged forth with her blade drawn. She refused to give Laurel Fron any time to respond. The two would have clashed if it wasn't for the instructor's meddling. He warned them that unnecessary quarrels inside the Satan campus are strictly forbidden. If they want to slice each other up, they should resolve their conflict outside the school. The students watching the fight were taken aback. If Ares hadn't intervened, something bad could have happened to two of the top prospects from the Seven Deadly Sins family. Renee promptly sheaths her sword with a scoff as Laurel shivered. With a concerned smile, Adele checked on his boss. She stared at him blankly as he gave her a heads up to take the stage. Instead of joining her group to take the test, Lady Renee pulled out a handkerchief and wiped Adele's sweat instead. She gently cleaned his face and complimented his good showing. It should have been me, not him. Lauren still hasn't learned her lesson and criticized Lady Renee for acting too close with a half-demon. Adele ignored her racism and was just glad that he was being treated a little better after passing the test. Looking him in the eye, Lady Renee asked if he hid his strength during the trial. Adele was confused. He had to risk a lot just to land his attack earlier. Finally, Group 34 was called to the stage, and Renee calmly made her way while promising to keep Adele's secret. She must think that he's an all-powerful priest from the family. With Lady Renee out of the picture, Laurel Franz swooped in to mess with Adele once more. Upon hearing what his name was, a sly smile appeared on her seductive face. She didn't appreciate being interrupted earlier. Emanating an intoxicating aura, she ordered Adele to leave that bear as skank and serve her instead. Laurel thinks her appeal can steal this nobody guard so she can avenge the humiliation from earlier. I know some of you would have folded. Wholly unaffected by her bewitching ability, Adele nonchalantly dismissed her and turned his attention to Lady Renee's performance. While she throws a childish tantrum, he focuses on the stage. Adele has high expectations for the children of the other Seven Deadly Sins family, but he's rooting for Renee. The Sword Saint had been rebuilt, leaking a bone-chilling aura around his attack range. It's an intense standoff, and Renee is not faltering in the slightest. Instead, she took a step forward, ignoring the three nobodies in her group completely. Her actions piqued even the future Demon Lord's attention. The air of envy, Balton laughed at her boldness. Adele, on the other hand, felt his alarm bells go off. Logically speaking, walking up to the Sword Saint is a death sentence. When the two were just inches apart, the aura showdown began. An old man and a young lady faced off to see who could aura farm better. After what seemed like forever, both of their expressions twisted with ferocity. The Sword Saint tried to stab her but ended up getting cut down in half, his sword and upper body sliced in two. Everyone was flabbergasted by the young lady's display of dominance. Without wasting another second in this stupid test and sparing another glance at his victim, Lady Renee quietly walked back and was welcomed with cheers. Even Instructor Ares was visibly pleased with her showing. Perhaps the most surprised of all was Adele. The Sword Saint must have sensed how good of a fighter she was and didn't dare to swing at first. Like a real stuck-up loser, Laurel scoffed at Renee's performance. Curious, Adele asked the heir of lust if a team comprised of Seven Deadly Sins heirs could defeat the real Sword Saint at full power. She laughed and answered that no life form can defeat the real Sword Saint as of now. Maybe if the previous Demon King was still alive, they would stand a chance. Besides, anyone with eyes would know that the pathetic fake they're using for this test is far weaker than the 10% power the instructors claim it has. Adele just realized that he had a ton of trouble with a fake with not even a tenth of the real deal's power. He created this world, but he's far too ignorant about the demonic realm. Still, the anticipation is beating in his heart. The remaining groups that are about to be tested are all led by Seven Deadly Sins heirs. Maybe they were fired up by Renee's performance, but the other heirs also showed why they are who they are. Every one of them trashed the fake Sword Saint convincingly, so it's hard to gauge the difference between the different families. But Adele knows the top two of this batch, the two who will go on to become major characters in the future. Once everyone had their turn, the entrance exams finally concluded. After gathering everyone in front of the podium, Instructor Ares announced that everyone who had the balls to participate in combat, regardless of the result, got a passing grade. With this, the remaining youngsters are now official trainees of Saitan. Ares warned them not to celebrate just yet, for they had just punched their ticket to a hellish road that had broken a lot of demons before. For those who have passed, the entrance ceremony will take place in 2 days' time. Those who have managed to defeat the Sword Saint must stay for a bit longer. Adele reckoned this must have something to do with the promise of the reward mentioned during the first test. The heirs of the Seven Deadly Sins, plus Adele, passed with flying colors, and they will have the opportunity to enter the armory. Before that, Baltan raised his hand in question. He asked if they could exit the armory with tons of weapons in hand. He's excited to see what Saitan has in store for him. This delusional question is par with the course for the Son of Envy, Lycan Baltan, who has an insatiable curiosity and appetite. Adele remembers writing quite a bit about this guy in his novel. Instructor Ares calmly retorted that trainees would have a hard time progressing on wielding multiple weapons, so they are permitted to only take one. Refusing to entertain more inane questions, he led them to the armory. He touched a wall's surface and a magical seal activated. A hidden door materialized before everyone's eyes. Ares added that this is a privilege that Saitan is giving outstanding trainees. Whether they make the best or worst choice is entirely up to fate. Instead of an armory, the entrance looks more like a dungeon gate. Ares instructed them to enter in the opposite order of the exam, and they would be inspected upon exit. That gives Baltan the first pick and Adele the last. The big guy must really dislike him. Excited to get the first treasure for himself, Baltan cheekily waved at everyone before going in. Since Lady Renee already has a good weapon, she plans on picking up an artifact inside, and Adele plans to do the same. Since they've been thinking along those lines, the other heirs must also be considering it. All the good artifacts might be gone by the time Adele gets his turn. Baltan exited the armory wearing a blackthorn crown, supremely pleased with his pick. The worst-case scenario is happening. Just as expected, everyone is coming out with artifacts. Before he knew it, Adele's turn had come. He saw the bracelet on Renee's wrist and asked about its features. She simply urged him to go inside and find out the description for himself. Renee also warned him about some of the displayed items that do not have descriptions. Those things might be devoid of descriptions, but they shouldn't be worthless if they're being housed in the armory, right? Before he went in, Adele gave Instructor Ares a lingering stare. Seemingly offended by this, the big guy urged the trainee to talk if he had something to say. With an awkward laugh, Adele asked what the deal was with the items that didn't have descriptions. Ares succinctly explained that those ones are artifacts and weapons with unclear purposes and unknown owners. If one is lucky, they can score an amazing relic. On the other hand, it might bring about a lifelong curse. With one final warning, Ares pressed the last passer to enter. Adele will just have to find out if going last is a good or bad thing. Once he entered, the structure changed dramatically. It was surprisingly bright and tidy, yet he felt a little anxious. He saw the light at the end of a long hallway and followed it through. When he arrived at the armory itself, he was greeted by the sight of weapons and artifacts sealed behind magical glass. All kinds of demonic relics filled the massive room. Turning to his right, he found a unique-looking spear and read its description. It's known as the Twin Fang Spear, a weapon used by an unnamed demon for serpent hunting. Vengeful serpent spirits inhabit the tip, and when infused with mana, 2 serpents emerge. The description tries hard to make this shit sound important, but it's a trash weapon through and through. Besides, Adele already has his daggers. Next up was the Starlight Crystal, once used by a skilled astrologer. When injected with mana, the user can borrow the light of the stars to illuminate the surroundings. It's practically a glorified flashlight. That's a pass, especially now that Adele is investing in the dark element. Seeing an empty magic case, he curiously looked at the description of the item that used to be housed inside. It's the Great Circlet of the Victor. It grants the user exceptional recovery and stamina, binding itself to the user until the day they die. This thing must be the thing Baltan was wearing on his head. Adele found this discovery odd. He remembers getting rid of binding items in his novel, so he never thought he would run into one here. Looking left and right to scan the area, he became more and more convinced that all the good stuff was gone. The bind of the python is gone, and so are the flag of the demon general and insignia of the fallen noble. The 7 deadly sins took most of the broken artifacts, and most of the armor and weapons in this place are borderline trash. Thinking that he has no other decent choice, Adele turned his attention to a cursed artifact. But then he remembered a unique method only he could use. Pulling out the magic paper, he steeled his resolve to spend a bit of gold. Turning to a broken sword without a description, he asked the page for information. He was prompted to pay with either an artifact above the relic grade or 100 gold coins. Before pulling out his savings, he realized one more thing. Testing out his burgeoning idea, he turned to a damaged scroll and did the same thing. This time, he was asked to pay at least 50 gold coins for more info. Since the scroll gauges importance by cost, he doesn't even need to pay up. He just needs to go with the item that extorts him the most. There is a total of 7 description-less boxes, and he quickly scouted them. Information for the eagle-shaped black stone costs a single gold coin. It's an obvious dud. Since it's just 1 gold coin, Adele didn't see the harm in spending a little. He was met with the eagle's function. It exchanges the owner's fortune with someone else's misfortune. In other words, it's trash. Adele quickly continued prospecting the unknown relics. Some intel costs 100, and some are in the 50s. None of them are overwhelmingly broken. With only 2 more left to go, he finally found one that cost 300 gold coins, a shoulder pauldron. The page estimates it to be at least a mythical artifact. This thing puts all the other artifacts picked by the heirs into the dirt. Just as he was about to pull the trigger and pick the pauldron, his attention was inexplicably drawn by the last descriptionless item he had yet to scout. He felt the strange feeling of being watched even though he was by himself. The artifact is in the form of an unassuming necklace. Something tells him that Adele's sharp senses are tingling. So he pulled out the magic paper and asked for more information about the strange accessory. The page glowed with bright light, and it flew on its own, emanating a blinding light. The cheat paper displayed a single sentence in response. "You must offer a god. This thing must be at least legendary if it demands a god for a sacrifice." Just when he thought he was doomed, he had been blessed instead. Upon thinking about this a little bit more, he realized that he was jumping the gun a little too early. Right now, he's not even associated with a minor god, let alone the demon god. For now, he decides to try infusing a bit of his mana into the mysterious necklace. After waiting for a few seconds, he was met with complete silence. It was frustrating. He has something extraordinary in front of him, and he has no idea what it's capable of. Racking his brain, he tried some more tricks using the paper, hoping to scam a bit of information by framing his questions differently. However, no matter what he asks, as long as it relates to the necklace, he keeps being prompted to offer a god in return. He's finally beginning to concede getting a lick of free info. Nevertheless, he took the risk and picked the bejeweled necklace as his reward. Regardless of function, he's certain that he got the most valuable thing in this armory. Upon equipping the accessory, he opened his status window to check for any changes. Just as he expected, an unknown trait that wasn't there had popped up. He'll just have to take his time figuring out what this thing really is. When he exited the armory, Instructor Ares questioned him about his odd pick. He truthfully explained that he picked an item without a description. When asked if he had any insider info, he honestly answered that he didn't. Technically, that wasn't a lie. Adele just can't think of a decent reason why this seems to hate him so much. Finally, the big guy conceded. He might be a little sus, but he has to trust the words of his cadets. He turned to the freshman frontrunners and advised them to take care of their chosen artifacts, for they could be their lifeline. Adele scanned the room and saw figures that would lead the demon world soon. They'll get tons of investment and support in the future, for sure. If he could siphon a bit of that resource to himself, he'd be satisfied. Upon dismissal, the hidden door to the armory vanished without a trace. With the exams wrapped up, it's time for the lady and the guard to head back to their dorm. Before they could leave, someone stopped Adele from taking another step. The smiling Baltan came up to him to apologize for his previous rudeness. He properly introduced himself and extended his hand to shake their beef out. This came out of nowhere, but Adele was not one to turn down politeness. When he took Baltan's hand, he realized that this guy was the farthest thing from polite. He immediately locked Adele's hand in a death grip, a mischievous grin on his face. Adele felt a sharp and crushing pain coursing through his hand. Baltan is the type of guy who doesn't give a damn about weaklings. He's only interested in the strong, driven by burning jealousy and envy. He once pushed the protagonist of the novel to the brink of death. But once he realized the MC's potential, the bastard spared him for another duel in the future. Lycan Baltan is a battle-crazed lunatic. With that smug smile plastered on his face, Baltan goaded Adele into action. So he assigned Baltan's sword as a target for position transfer too. In a blink of an eye, he exchanged positions with the blade, tapping the bastard's shoulder. The test just ended, so Adele is not in the mood to placate a spoiled young master's whims. Besides, that handshake almost crushed his bones. In response, Baltan laughed with pure amusement. Seeing Adele's ability only served to stoke the lunatic's fighting spirit. Now he wants to fight to the death. Before things could escalate further, Lady Renee stepped up to stop the psycho. Emitting her own bone-chilling aura, she warned Baltan that she'd join the fray if he continued with his antics. Finally, the lunatic reined his aura in. As much as he loves fighting, taking on 2 powerhouses at once would be a bit much. He doesn't want to risk injury before school starts. Besides, there will be plenty of chances to draw each other's blood. The maniac really is crazy. He says he doesn't want to get injured, but he's down for a fight to the death. Adele can't get a clear of Baltan just yet. For now, it's time to make his exit with the young lady. Despite all those shenanigans, Adele couldn't help but look forward to life at Saitan. Back in their hotel, Adele woke up feeling refreshed in the morning. Bro is casually showing off his perfectly toned body to flex on us mortals. He feels better, and he's getting stronger day by day. Excited, he pulled out the uniform that Saitan sent over to try. After putting on standard black pants and a patched black blazer combo, he was surprised by how comfortable it felt. They are not allowed to wear anything but uniforms for 3 whole years, but at least the uniform itself is practical. Wanting to see Lady Renee and hers, he hurried towards her room and gave a knock. Upon confirming that it was her guard, Renee opened the door. Adele was taken aback by how pretty she looked in the classic blazer and skirt, illuminated by the sunlight peering through the windows. He couldn't help but verbalize his compliment, making the young lady blush. She might be cold-blooded with a blade, but her cute side is seriously killer too. Since Adele has a rare day off, he's planning to walk around the city for a bit. He bowed and advised that she rest, but was stopped before leaving. Red-faced and bashful, she asked if he was forgetting something. She reminded him that he was on a day off as a student, but not as a guard. He totally forgot about his primary job after getting too excited at the thought of resting alone. To compromise, she'll just join him on a walk around the city after changing. Just like that, his planned day off went up to smoke. His sorrow was erased by the liveliness of the city. With how clean and peaceful it is, it's hard to believe that the war took place just 10 years ago. Reconstruction is still ongoing in the outer regions. Humans may have won the war, but they failed to fully take the capital. Tugging on his sleeves, Lady Renee innocently pointed to a street food stall, eager to try some. The meat glistened as the heat brought it to the perfect color. It's a skewer of seasoned buck and vegetables. Curious if it tastes like chicken, Adele ordered 2 for him and the lady. As soon as they took the first bite, the pleasant flavor uplifted their moods. Adele was amused to see the stoic Renee making such an adorable expression. Maybe she's starting to open up to him bit by bit. The two continued to stroll around the city square while happily chatting. It's been a long time since Adele had a real break, and this will probably be the last one he'll have. Eventually, their walk led them to a stalwart statue in the middle of the capital. Adele looked at the giant statue with confusion, and Renee had to explain that it depicted the image of the first Demon King. Looking at it closer, he noticed the uncanny resemblance to Diana. It's not every day you get to see the first Demon King's features up close. When Adele tried to focus a bit more, he saw the statue's eyes glow with a familiar light. The necklace dangling on his neck resonated with the piercing glare. The stoic memorial of the first Demon King shot out an otherworldly power right into his artifact. Much to his surprise, it resulted in one of the jewels losing its luster and turning gray. What's weirder is that Renee doesn't see what just happened. She just saw Adele behaving oddly and pulling out his artifact. Normally, it's simply impossible that she didn't notice that blinding light. But based on her confused expression, she really had no clue. He remembered the page asking him to offer a god for information. Now he just discovered something significant in the most unexpected place. He's certain that this artifact is somehow connected to the first Demon King, firing him up to investigate further. With that, their walk around the city had concluded with Adele bursting with curiosity. The next morning, they headed straight to Saitan for the entrance ceremony. The headmaster and instructors stood on stage, facing around 100 new students in the auditorium. Adele can overhear the freshmen calling the headmaster a little kid, even though she's a monster who can crush them without lifting a finger. Some even find her cute. They are calling a child covered in tattoos cute. Some of Adele's batchmates need to investigate their hard drives. Suddenly, she shot a sharp glare in the direction of the scandalous students. Adele made a mental note of the possibility that she could read minds. With Instructor Aries' shout that shut everybody up, the entrance ceremony started. The headmaster gave a run-of-the-mill speech, and the atmosphere settled down. With the opening speech out of the way, the oath-taking for the top cadet and the runner-up commenced. As expected, the accolades went to Diana and Baltan. Looking at Lady Renee, she seemed unfazed that she didn't get the top spot. It makes sense, considering that her sole reason for enrolling is to take revenge on her mother. She doesn't give a damn about competition. As for Adele, he has his own agenda, no matter what anyone says. On the way up to the podium, Belton shot him a challenging glare and a cocky smile. Adele chose to just ignore him. Getting caught up with that maniac will be nothing but bad news. When the top cadet walked up to the stage, her presence alone showed why she was on top. As expected from someone blessed by the gods, the Demon King's daughter, Diana, is unmatched. The oath of the top cadet to wipe their disgrace and rebuild the demonic realm echoed inside the auditorium. Everyone could feel the rage from those who lost their homes and families at the hands of humans. If these demons find out that Adele is from the arson bloodline, the worst-case scenario would be torture for an eternity. With the entrance ceremony concluded, Instructor Aries directed everyone to check their assigned classes on the bulletin board. Everyone lined up neatly to find their names on the board. Upon scanning the assignments, Adele found his name under Class A. When he looked for Lady Renee's name, a tear almost ran down his cheek. Thankfully, his boss is assigned to Class C. He tried to appear upset, but the smile on his face gave his mood away. She asserted that he's still her guard, and he must drop everything when she calls for him. Pleased with the semblance of independence he just gained, Adele headed for his assigned classroom. On the way, he accidentally bumped into another student. The kid turned to him with murderous eyes, veins bulging in his neck. The rude kid threatened to kill him and called him a Cerberus-looking bastard. Adele was taken aback by the unprovoked hostility from a stranger. He recognized the kid as the son of Varus, a descendant of Gluttony, Samuel. He's pretty strong among the 7 deadly sins. The kid is picking a fight even though he's at fault. Trying to avoid any mishaps on the first day, Adele apologized. Samuel is one prickly freak with an extremely punchable face. Aside from Lady Renee, it seems like the children of the 7 deadly sins are all freaks. Adele can only pray that he won't be stuck with Baltan in Class A. In the faculty room of Saitan, a heated meeting was underway. Instructor Idea was protesting that she should be respected as a proper instructor of Saitan. Instructor Aries argued that she simply couldn't be trusted to handle a particularly dangerous child, and asserted that he had more experience handling such a case. Idea found it preposterous that this guy was trying to walk all over her to take control of Class A. Mediating in between the two, Headmaster Lucian asked them to pipe down. Idea finds it unfair that she's always being targeted by criticism. To clear the air, the headmaster let Aries speak of his reason for wishing to switch classes with Idea. He simply explained that he was better equipped to handle that trainee, Adele, for he had faced countless foes like that kid on the battlefield before. One look was all it took for him to see that the boy was a natural-born killer. He's the kind who would point his blade at his allies and must be restrained right away. The other instructors think he's overreacting to a half-demon boy significantly weaker than the children of the 7 deadly sins. Aries argued that raw power doesn't define true strength. Adele's boldness and calmness are no less than the best of the heirs. This is why he wants to take over Class A, which is to keep a close eye on the cadet. So, in the end, he's simply saying that Instructor Idea cannot be trusted to handle one standout trainee. Aries is treating his colleague like a kid. Hearing this useless chatter, the headmaster sighed. She leaked a little bit of her aura, forcing the instructors to shut the hell up. While she understands Aries' concerns, switching class advisors now would do more harm than good. However, she also recognized being a bit cautious would not hurt. So she simply tasked Instructor Idea to pay special attention to the Adele boy. With that, the meeting concluded, and the first day of classes shall officially begin. Inside Class A's lecture hall, Adele is sitting quietly while cursing his luck. In front of him was Laura Fraun, the heir of lust, already pestering him non-stop. At least being stuck with her would be better than being stuck with Diana. And instead of Baltan, another one of his classmates is Samuel, the prickly brat of gluttony. Laurel conceitedly asked him if he followed her into class when everyone knew that class assignments were random. With a haughty laugh, she arrogantly bestowed Adele the privilege of being her slave again. Look at those horns. Some of you would have folded immediately. While they were having a one-sided conversation, Samuel butted in and threatened to kill both of them if they didn't shut the hell up. Even for a demon, this kid is just insufferable. Laurel did not like his tone at all. Thankfully, she found another target to bother, leaving Adele alone to cry, for this would be his life in the near future. The door burst open and Instructor Idea entered the lecture hall, silencing everyone. Her presence commanded everyone's respect. When she finally got to the lectern, Instructor Idea introduced herself to the cadets of Class A. She also added that people know her more commonly as the Legion of Calamity. That nickname goes hard. Not gonna lie. The students murmured amongst themselves upon hearing her moniker. She's famed to have killed 10 or 30,000 humans at the Pollux River by herself. Adele liked what he heard. With such a strong mentor, his chances of survival should improve by a lot. With introductions done, she segued into how their classes will progress in the coming days. It's quite simple, actually. She will be in charge of teaching them hunting methods. Of course, they won't be hunting animals or demonic beasts. They will be hunting, one of the main reasons why cadets flock to Saitan. They will be learning how to properly prey on humans. Adele maintained his poker face upon hearing such a thing. Instructor Idea will be solely responsible for hunting classes. Magic and weaponry will be taught by other capable instructors. On top of that, she'll also be in charge of basic stamina training. For their first class, being cooped up inside a classroom won't suffice. They need to go to the training grounds. As soon as Adele laid eyes upon the grounds, he was shocked by its size. It's maybe 4 or 5 times larger than a typical field. With everyone assembled, Instructor Idea activated her ability and summoned a swirling black hole, directing everyone to pay attention to her actions. When the black hole reached critical mass, a spread of darkness descended. The hole turned into a portal, and the sound of metal marching out bellowed. An army of human crusaders trailed out of the portal, their expressions blank. Seeing the strained looks on her cadets' faces, she assured them that these were just illusions created by magic. She also created the Sword Saint that tested their mettle at the entrance exam. Adele could tell that someone capable of creating a clone nearing 1/10 of the Sword Saint's power was not someone to mess with. This instructor is a monster in her own right. While Saitan is quite formidable, he is pretty certain that the Royal Academy far exceeds it by a decent margin. Instructor Idea gave the cadets of Class A a simple task. They must pass the humans and reach her. For starters, she scanned the field until her eyes landed on a particular trainee. She called Adele up to give him the first try. With a sly smile, she dared him to stab her throat like he did with the Sword Saint's clone. Just when he thought he'd escaped the prying eyes of Instructor Aries, it seems like Instructor Idea is also wary of him. Firstly, he asked if they wouldn't have a normal direct sparring. She expounded that humans use their leader as a source of mental fortitude. They are susceptible to falling like dominoes when the leader falls. A strong leader begets a strong army. She will take on that role for this sparring. Adele thought it made sense. Sun Tzu's Art of War chronicled the concept that an enemy can be defeated by capturing their chief. As he drew his dagger, a confident smile appeared on his face. Subduing a leader in the middle of an army is way too easy. Instructor Idea jovially added that subduing her is impossible, so a simple tap of a hand or a weapon on her body will suffice for a passing grade. And so, she ordered her human army to begin their assault. A second had barely passed, and Adele had already transferred from behind the overconfident instructor. His dagger could lop her head off if he wanted. The confident smile was erased from her face as thick killing intent froze her in place. Adele playfully asked if this was considered a pass. They started off separated by a dozen meters, but this much distance is practically nothing to him now. All he had to do was transfer twice to sneak up on her. He's steadily progressing the cap on his position transfer. Soon he'll be the perfect assassin who can bring down any enemy base with ease and finesse. Instructor Idea laughed. She's not naive enough to leave her body unguarded. Her body is protected by a barrier. At least now she gets why Aries is so adamant about watching out for this kid. She gave him a passing grade and told him to get back in line. As he walked back to the pack, he wondered if what he sensed was hostility or curiosity. Either way, it made him worry about his identity being leaked. Instructor Idea praised Cadet Adele and warned the rest of the class that those who fail will receive additional classes. And so, Class A took turns trying to break through an army of human clones. As expected of demons, they got the basics of combat down pat. It also helps that they're fighting against the equivalent of normal humans without powers. Still, all everyone had accomplished thus far was taking down a few puppets that the instructor wasn't even directly controlling. One by one, the cadets were forced to surrender upon being overwhelmed by a sloppily assembled battalion formation. The next cadet who was called up saw the mistakes of his classmates and tried to use elevation to bypass the wall of human puppets. He was quickly shot down by a group of puppet archers and their arrows. Adele awkwardly smiled at such pathetic displays. Times like this remind him of how broken position transfer really is. At this rate, he should be able to aim for the top of the class. Next on the list is none other than Samuel. Adele is looking forward to seeing if this brat's cocky attitude matches his skill level. Upon taking his starting position, Samuel began by accumulating mana around his body. The amount of concentrated mana continued to grow until the pressure around the area soared. Befitting of his brashness, Samuel's mana coalesced into a swirling tornado of pure destructive power. The other cadets were almost blown away by the scathing wind. Adele watched in shock as Samuel wiped the whole human battalion into one fell swoop. This is his first time seeing magic at such a high level. Samuel's gluttonous unique ability is a monstrous skill that can devour everything in its patch. Adele reckoned that the kid might take the top spot in the class for now. But when the dust settled, Instructor Idea emerged unscathed. In fact, she was quite disappointed with this batch. Adele expected as much. There's no way an instructor would let herself get blown away by a cadet. Samuel's attack wiped the board clean beside the leader. It was an impressive feat, enough to give a slight shock for a brief second. Unfortunately for him, he fails like many others. Samuel was taken aback, seemingly wanting to appeal the decision. Instructor Idea simply snapped her fingers and showed why something elementary was useless against her. Behind her was a whole army of human puppets. Once more, she emphasized that if a leader is left alive, humans will always find replacements to fill their ranks. Stretching all the way out of the field, Adele estimated that there should be about 200 puppets behind the instructor. All Professor Idea can say is that Samuel's magic is impressive, but only for a fledgling first-year cadet. The prickly Samuel knew better than to talk back. So, he scoffed and walked back to the pack. Adele was quite surprised that the kid could take the harsh result, albeit full of discontent. When their eyes crossed for a second, Samuel felt his anger rise higher. The kid's overconfidence in his ability is the root of his failure. If he focused all that power on the real target, he could have passed this test without any issues. The initial assessment continued as Idea called on another cadet. A high and mighty laugh bellowed from the crowd. Laurel Franz stepped up to the plate, excited to get her turn in the spotlight. The other cadets were certain that she'd pass. It'll only be a matter of how. She stood in front of the puppets, calling them minions who dared block her path. Her arrogant words did not elicit the response she was hoping for. Nervously sweating, her haughty words stopped coming. Seeing that she couldn't use her abilities on the puppets, she desperately thought of a way out of this mess. As Adele expected, the heir of lust is not the type to fight directly. Back in the entrance exam, she used her teammates as crazed minions while staying at the back, barking orders like a queen bee. She's practically harmless without minions. Desperate for a solution, she turned her attention back to the flock of cadets and locked gazes with Adele. With pleading eyes, she asked for help but still referred to him as a slave. Unaware of their one-sided dynamic, the entire class silently discussed what they just heard. Adele wasn't going to help Laurel in the first place, but now he definitely will not. Tired of her crying, Instructor Idea ordered her army to charge forth. Laurel recoiled at the sight of the puppets swarming her. They surrounded her and rained punches and kicks. Adele couldn't believe that she didn't even bother learning to cast buffs on herself. Everyone watched as the puppet beat her up for a concerningly long time while begging for help. While everyone was focused on the beating, Adele's attention was drawn elsewhere. He just watched one of his classmates heal a wound completely. Healing magic is a power that only humans can use. Since that's the case, it's safe to assume that this pink-haired cutie must be a half-demon too. Healing talent is rare as is. A demon that can heal is practically non-existent. While he doesn't remember this girl's name, he made a mental note of finding a way to connect with her somehow. Just when he was about to approach her, Instructor Idea tasked him with helping Cadet Fran back to the classroom now that the test was over. Her timing couldn't be any worse. He'd rather try getting acquainted with the healer instead of babysitting a spoiled brat. He kneeled down and flicked the beaten and battered Laurel on her forehead, calling her useless. Adele poked her repeatedly to wake up and get up. The trashing she could live with, but being humiliated in front of everyone made her feel worse. At least when she calls him a slave, he can just clap back that she's pathetically weaker than one. Before the end of class, Instructor Idea ordered everyone to gather and line up. She had some high expectations, but the results were disappointing to say the least. Still, today is a good first lesson. It's important for these youngsters to experience overwhelming defeat to get a sense of where they stand in the world. It's imperative that they see where their flaws are and what mistakes they make. Finding out their limits early on is a big step forward. Knowing these allows them to support one another in battle. Adel found it odd that Saitan uses random class placement when human imperial schools usually split students based on their abilities. Instructor Idea touches on the concept of synergy. Despite all the failures today, one student passed the test. Singling him out among the crowd, Idea shot him a lingering glance, claiming that she'd be paying attention to his progress. Adele awkwardly thanked her while feeling the gazes of his classmates burning behind his back. Finally, they were dismissed and directed to return to the classroom for their next class. If the instructors are hostile, so are his batchmates. Samuel, in particular, looked like he was ready to pounce. Adele is worried that, at this point, building up his own faction might be next to impossible with all the meddling of those pesky kids from the 7 deadly sins. After hunting class, the rest of the lessons went on without a hitch. Next in their schedule was theoretical education. In theory class, they learned about the history of the demonic realm and the cursory weaknesses of humans. Adele diligently listened. Today he learned that demons have practically the same body structure as humans. Getting hit in certain parts equates to the same level of pain. Next time, they'll be having a quiz, so the instructor reminded them to study. It was surprisingly normal. Nevertheless, Adele found going through school tedious when he'd already gone through this in his previous life. It's only the first day, but he's already feeling defeated. Just like in his previous life, he had no friends to talk to after class. Speaking of friends, there's this one girl he's been trying to get acquainted with. The pink-haired lady who has healing powers. Since the next class won't start for a few more minutes, perhaps this is his chance to talk to her. Slowly walking up to her desk, the two exchanged a glance. With a warm smile, Adel properly introduced himself. The girl stared at him in silence while the rest of the class dropped whatever they were doing and paid attention to the two. Now that he's thinking about it, Adele realizes that when two half-demons do anything together, they are bound to draw attention from the masses. The girl is visibly uncomfortable with this, so it would be best to save the rest of the conversation for next time. So he quickly extracted himself from the awkward situation. Heading to the door, he just wanted to head to the restroom and feed loneliness to his mana or something. Suddenly the door opened, and Samuel walked in. For the nth time today, the two locked eyes. Adele just wanted to get out. Yet this prickly brat looked at him like he was lower than garbage. Trying to keep the status quo, Adele reluctantly deferred and made way for Samuel to go in first. As the kid passed Adele, Samuel scoffed and murmured about how he's a nauseating, low-class creature. Everyone has a bottom line. Adele tried his best to stay out of trouble all day, but he's finally reached his limit for bullshit. He turned his head and sarcastically praised Samuel's family, seemingly touching on a sore spot. Samuel unleashed his stinky aura and asked him to repeat what he just said. Doubling down, Adele praised the gluttonous family for producing absolute garbage that can walk and talk. Those words pushed Samuel over the edge. Though, to be fair, it doesn't take much to provoke him into unbridled rage. Unlike Balton, who knows when to push and pull, this dumbass cannot control his pure hatred and hostility. If this kid is going to get in the way of Adele's plans, then it would be better to just take him out of the picture right now. Samuel contorted and shaped his mana around his body, forming a spiky armor. Adele was unfazed. He thinks that he should be able to get away with blowing an arm off if he frames the incident properly. But before the two could collide, the instructor for the next class had already arrived without anyone noticing. After dispelling their raging auras, the slick-backed, glasses-wearing instructor smiled kindly and politely asked everyone to take their seats. Both Samuel and Adele didn't even sense the instructor entering the room.